Okay, so this tutorial is going to show you how to use a function called VLookup. VLookup is very, very useful when you want to pull in corresponding data from one table into another without having to type in for every relevant row. So for example, here I've got a mock-up whereby, let's say these are all employees in an office and they're going out for the Christmas dinner and they have selected their set menu options from the restaurant's menu. And each menu option comes with a different price. So we want to identify how much each person has to pay and then what the total bill at the end should be. So in order to do this, I have a table down here with my menu costs, the names of the people going for the meal and their menu option selections. And in this place here, I am going to pull in the appropriate price based upon the relevant the relevant menu option letter, okay, from here to here. This is what I'm going to do now. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to name this table here. This is what's called my table array. My table array is the table that I'm drawing the information out of. So I highlight the table. Notice I've not highlighted the header of the table, just the data. So I highlight the table, and up here in my cell reference naming box, I can delete what is currently in there and I can rename this set of cells. So I'm going to rename this set of cells as menu. And I press enter. And you notice now if I click here on cell B21, it still says in the box B21, and the same for A22. But if I click and drag over all of those cells, it now says menu. So up in my total to pay up here, I'm going to write a formula which is called a VLookup. So I start with an equals, which is what every formula starts with. Following the equals, I now need to type my command word, which in this case is VLookup. So if I start typing V, and if I can't find it straight away, VL, I'll find that VLookup will appear in my functions. Okay, and when I click on it, it does give me again my helpful hints on what I want to include in my formula. I've managed to click in cell C4 there, and I don't really want to do that, so I'm just going to delete that part out of my formula. So the first thing I want to put in my lookup is my lookup value, then comma, then my table array, we know what that is, then comma, then the column index number, then comma, then the range lookup. Okay, so very simply, the lookup value is what are we looking up, okay? So we are looking up the menu option per student. So in this case, the menu option for James is found in cell B2 because this is the row we're working on. So we're looking up value B2 and we want to look up value B2 in the table array that we have named. So B2, lookup value, comma. Now the table array that we've named is menu. So now I'm going to type in menu. And the computer knows that this table here is called menu because I've named it. So that's now highlighted in green. Wonderful. Comma. The column index number. This is asking which column are we pulling the data across from, column 1 or column 2. Okay. Now I know this is actually column A and column B and we call the rows by numbers, but the reason we have to say column 1 or column 2 is because perhaps this menu here isn't in rows A and B, perhaps it's all the way over here, or perhaps it has multiple tables, multiple columns in the same table. So we essentially call it column 1 and column 2. In this case, I don't really want the information from column 1, I've already got that. I want the information from column 2. So I'm pulling across the data from column 2. So I type that into my formula. Finally, for the range lookup, I need to identify whether the data should be true or false. True is where we are looking for a exact match, and false is when we're looking for the closest something to it. 99% of the time you will use the instruction false for your range lookup. Okay, 99% of the time this will work, because it will, even if there's, say, for example, a space after one of the A's, it will still identify that this is the same thing, or it's as close to it as possible. Whereas if you were looking for something absolutely exact, you might find some errors if, say, one was a capital and one was a lowercase, that kind of thing. So now when I press enter, this has now pulled in my price for menu option A, which was $12.99. I can now fill copy this down without having to worry about absolute cell referencing, because these are all relative cell references, so they can all change relative to the row that they're on. And this here hasn't used a cell reference, this has used a named range, a named group of cells. So I can now fill handle, drag that down, and it will fill in the value of the prices for each cell. So now I'm just going to format these as currency. So I'm going to right click and format cells and go to currency, set it to euros with 2 decimal places. There we go. And finally, I'm just going to add up my total, which is going to be another really simple formula function called a sum. So equals sum, which is going to add everything up. I'm going to open my brackets and add the range of the sum to go from cell C2 there all the way down to C16, and close the brackets. And that will add up the total for the office to pay for the Christmas night out, which in this case was €214.42.